welcome back to the Rob and Evil Show. It's been a while since we had a video for you guys.
Much hair has grown.
Yeah, our beards have thickened and
the wizened. Was it wizened?
Yeah, we're much wizened and a little grayer. Wasn't even because of COVID. It's just we've been busy with other things. Yeah, we're lazy and yeah, we also live like an hour away from each other now, but we're gonna try to start getting more videos out to you guys. We're recording at least a few today.
So if you see us wearing the same clothes, it ain't a struggle. It's
don't judge.
We're trying to be economical.
Yeah. I only wear this like for 5 days and then I change, so don't judge. We wanted to do a show on Chrono Trigger. I recently
taking it back to 1995.
Yep, retro. I recently bought it for Super Nintendo. I had it back in the day, but who knows what happened to it. But I just recently bought it and beat it, and so it's been on my mind. And I kind of wanted to see how it held up to today's standards too. And so yeah, with it being on my mind, I really wanted to make a video. Both of us did. I guess I can take you back. Like, I was actually first introduced to this by our friend Bill back in the day. Yeah, I went to the video store one day, and there's this weird character there looking at the Super Nintendo games. I didn't think much
It was Saginaw?
Yeah.
What was played? Blazing Video?
Blazing Video in Saginaw, Texas.
It's not there anymore?
Yep. It's not there anymore, yeah. But,
for all you old schools, if y'all lived in Sagging Balls?
Yep. The ruthless Sagging Balls. But yeah, so I was there just looking to rent something else. And this weird motherfucker came up to me, and he was putting Chrono Trigger in my face, saying, "Oh, you should play this. Have you played this?" And I was like, "No, I don't really know what that is." He's like, "You should play this. You should play this. It's fucking awesome." And I was like, "Okay." So I started looking at the box.
Who's this homeless kid?
Yeah, I was like, "What the fuck?" This is the first interaction I ever had with Bill, and he ended up being our friend for years. But I was like, "Okay." So I started looking at it. I was like, "Okay, it does look pretty cool," but at the time, I honestly wasn't even into RPGs. Like, I think I played Zelda, A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo, and I think that was about it at that point, as far as me playing RPGs. I think Jason got me onto Zelda, actually. They played a little bit.
Can we take you back in time here, calculate? Zelda, Zelda was, I don't know if it was a launch game. It was back in 91, maybe, 1991. Anyway, Zelda was out. And then me and Rob had moved. I briefly moved somewhere, so I wasn't around him for a year or two. Yeah. So I got into it over at the other side of town where I was living with the other kids. And then I liked it. So that was the thing about me with Chrono Trigger and all them. Like, me, honestly, I loved Chrono Trigger. I was into it. I think I almost beat the game. I went through most of it. I had it myself. Because back then, them games were $80 each.
Yeah.
And so I have more memories with Secret of Mana type shit. Now, the thing with that is, even before that, I was kind of an asshole. Like, I had come up on Zelda, what he was talking about, and Zelda, I think they call the term action RPG, where you go through and it's real-time battles. You kill someone, you swap them, and then that's what we grew up on. I didn't know about this turn-based shit and all this stuff.
Battle screens.
It was a change from like Mario. Mario's instant kill,
Yeah.
And so Zelda, once you go through Zelda, you see, oh, it's badass for an RPG. It's cool, the adventure, or whatever. And then you jump to Final Fantasy. I was like, hell no! Like, I've seen all these battle screens, we called them.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it at all. It was like onions and a burrito, man.
It was jarring to be like walking around, and then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, you just go to.
We were just hating. Like, hold on. First of all, you're walking around, and then you just, and then you jump to some off-brand screen, and then you're way over here. And what annoyed me, I was being a neckbeard about it. I was being all, actually, this is whack. Like, you swipe, and it didn't hit them.
Yeah.
It was symbolism,
Yeah. They would swipe. They'd be way over here and swipe.
We just didn't get that. Like,
it was just kind of strange.
It was a shock to us.
Yeah.
And so that hindered me getting into the RPG style past Zelda. But eventually, I come across Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, I think it was. I have a wild story about that. This different video.
Yeah.
But it went from that to Chrono Trigger, and then I guess Rob might have showed me Chrono Trigger because he met Bill before I did.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
I might have.
But I showed him Secret of Mana.
Yeah. Jason kind of started to get the ball rolling on RPGs for me, and then but Bill showed me Chrono Trigger. Eventually, I ended up liking.
You listen to the homeless kid, the video store.
Yeah. Eventually, I ended up liking a lot of the Japanese RPGs. Like, I beat probably I think at least 4 of the.
Once we
Final
got it,
Fantasies.
if we didn't understand it, we're like, wait,
Yeah.
but once we got it, then it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
nowadays, it's fine, battle scenes and all that stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, back in the day, we just weren't into it, and but Chrono Trigger is unique because it's kind of a mix between the two, to where you can see the enemies on screen, and you can, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times you can avoid them if you want to. It's not, and even when you can't avoid them, they still run out. Like
Random spawn type shit.
they'll
Landmine
like,
type shit. Where you
yeah, they'll like run out of a bush.
That's
or
too much
something.
stress, man. You walk around, you don't know when this.
Yeah, and it's at random, and so Chrono Trigger, I thought the first thing that turned me on about Chrono Trigger, I was like, okay, well, it's not, there's no battle screens, you don't flash to
That's what I like.
some bootleg thing, and they run up and hit them, and it was fucking awesome.
It's kind of a hybrid, dog.
Yeah, and that was the first thing that really allowed me to play it, because I wasn't even going to play it if it was like Final Fantasy style. And again, later on, I get
We were haters.
Yeah. Eventually, I ended up liking those too, but and so I took a chance. I was like, okay, man. I mean, Bill was hyping it up. I was like, okay, so I'll rent it. I didn't really have anything else better to rent that day, and so I'm sitting there renting it, and he's like, dude, can I come home with you or whatever? Like, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I guess. Like, we were kind of talking. I was like, and my mom had took me to the video store at the time, and I think I was like in my early teens. I don't remember, but
If you're living over there, that was 95.
okay, yeah, so yeah, that sounds about
I think
right.
it was 94,
Yeah,
95.
yeah, 95, maybe 90.
For all you,
latest
whatever,
96s.
we were 15, around 15.
Yeah.
Some of y'all didn't exist.
Yeah, and so I was like, yeah, I mean, you know what, my mom will probably.
Y'all gotta understand Bill, though. We can't.
That's like a whole nother episode.
Bill, yeah, he has to be experienced.
Yeah.
So,
Bill's an experience.
But yeah, he was just a random kid walked up.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Bill's crazy. So I was like, look, my mom, you know, will give you a ride to my house, but she doesn't want to get out later. And he's like, Bill's like, I got legs, dude. I'll walk. I was like, you're gonna walk all the way back over here? It's probably like at least 5 miles. You know, when you're a teenager, that's a long ways to walk, or at least it was for me. And he did. Like, we went and we played it for a while, and he stayed there till late, and he ended up walking home because my mom didn't want to get back out. But I played it. But I only rented it, so I didn't have time to beat it and do everything. Well, and I loved it. Like like I was saying, the different play style, gameplay wise. They have what I guess they're called tech attacks, where you basically like multiple characters. You can have 2 characters that join and do an attack, or you can have all 3 join together and do an attack. Yeah. And that was something new that I've never seen. That was fucking awesome to have all 3 characters join together. And according to, like there's whatever they did, if they were like a water user or fire or whatever, they would
Pokemon
like,
style, boy.
yeah, they would all like do their styles together, like, and it was just, there's like a ton of different combinations that you can do. And I just like I said, I've never seen that before. That was like awesome on the gameplay end. The music was freaking awesome, which I'll get into more in a minute because I got a lot to say about that. The music grabbed me. I will say the beginning of Chrono Trigger was kind of slow for me. I still think it's kind of a slow start. It's kind of a slow burn. Like it might not grab you immediately. It might take you at least a couple hours, 2 to 6 hours for it to really grab you, I think. Maybe that's why some people couldn't get into it. They didn't give it enough of a chance, probably. So I liked it. I didn't get to beat it, and Bill ended up buying it later on.
Again, it was like $80.
Yeah. These games were like, I think it was like probably like something like $75.99 plus tag, about $80 after tax. And
15-year-olds.
I think some of them might have been $79 at certain places and stuff. But yeah, so. He had, knew it fresh in the box, everything in it, the poster and everything. And he let me borrow it so I could beat it. I ended up, I'm not gonna say I stole it, but I held on to it for a really long time until something happened to it. And Bill kind of forgot about it. Because I don't remember giving it back. I might have, but I don't think I even ever gave it back to him. I think I borrowed it for like months, and I sat there and played the crap out of it. And I was trying to get all the endings. Still to this day, I haven't gotten all the endings. I believe there's like 12 endings, if I remember right. I've gotten most of them. You know, that's another thing too. You can play through it, and it's long on its own. It takes at least 30 hours to beat it, your first playthrough, and that's if you know what you're doing and you're kind of rushing through it. It might take an average player longer than 30 hours, but after you beat it, there's New Game Plus, where you can kind of keep your levels and go back through it again. And at first you're kind of overpowered, you know, everything, so it's kind of cool. And then but you can earn like additional endings, you know, and the New Game Plus, it opens up even more endings. So the replayability was really good of it, which I've never heard of. I don't think I've heard of New Game Plus either at that time. I mean, there's probably games that had it, but this is the first time that I've seen it. So the replayability was off the charts for the time. I mean, I spent easily 80 hours or more into it. Well, over time I spent a lot more than that, but I mean, right off the bat. And that was kind of my experience with Chrono Trigger. It just, this was like over 25 years ago, and it still to this day left an impression on me. I really don't know if there's any modern games today that 25 years from now I'm going to be singing its praises like this. Like, you know, Chrono Trigger was one of those fucking rare, fucking legendary games that they're like once in a lifetime type games for me anyway. And it's just, I think the reason is it's a combination of the music. It was also, you know, not to be corny, but it was the first game that I kind of got emotional over. Like, you know, with the story and the characters, and I don't want to say any spoilers, but one of the characters dies at one point, and you know, you're able, if you can actually let it go, or you can like do the
you get enthralled.
Yeah, you could do side missions to like bring him back to life, and also there's like a character that could be missed if you don't do it right. He won't join your party, and like there's all these cool things I've never seen before. But I actually really got invested in the characters. Like, you know, they each have their own personality. The character designs are amazing. Akira Toriyama did the character designs, which I didn't know nothing about back in the day. Like, now I'm a fan of Dragon Ball, and you know, of course, like I knew Akira Toriyama from Dragon Ball, and I didn't even put two and two together till years later. I was like, wait a minute, Chrono sure the fuck looks like Dragon Ball art, like the exact same thing. And then later years later, I realized Akira Toriyama did the art for Chrono Trigger. And so I started digging a little bit into the history of Chrono Trigger and whatnot. You know, some years back, just learn about it. And so yeah, Akira Toriyama, I'd loved Dragon Ball for a long time, and he just happened to do the character creation and artwork for this game too, which is a crazy coincidence. I guess I just like his art style. While we're talking about the creators, okay, Chrono Trigger, this is how Chrono Trigger came into existence. I'm just doing this off the top of my head because we didn't take notes.
Not verbatim.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm just kind of paraphrasing, I guess, if you will, whatever. But, okay, there's, you had the main character, or the main designer for Final Fantasy back in the day, Hironobu Sakaguchi. He was the writer for the old Final Fantasies and you know, did a lot of the work for that. And there was Yuji Horii, who did the Dragon Quest games, which I've heard good things, but I haven't, to this day, I haven't really got into Dragon Quest that much. But it looks awesome as an RPG. And then there's, of course, Akira Toriyama from Dragon Ball, who created Dragon Ball. So these three were on a, I want to say a plane ride. They just happened to be, you know, in the same area, and they got to talking about, they're like, hey, we should create something. We want to create something new and different. All three of them. So eventually they finally got the project off the ground. So these three, you know, main like heavyweights in the video game world and you know, anime world came together to make this game. It's like a dream team. And so yeah, I guess that's it. They say that it was kind of a perfect storm that'll probably never happen again. Something like this, just all the ingredients from these big creators. they originally they were going to. I'm kind of jumping around, but originally they're going to release Chrono Trigger on the CD, the Nintendo CD system.
Super Nintendo, PlayStation was.
Yeah, that created by Sony, the CD system that was supposed to hook up to the Super Nintendo. If I remember right, they were creating it for that, and that fell through, of course. So they had to like kind of change it a lot and kind of downgrade it a little bit for Super Nintendo. So it pushes, I would say it pushes Super Nintendo like to the max as far as how much stuff is in the game, the effects, like when you're using, you know, attacks and magic and all kind of stuff like that. I think it like really pushed Super Nintendo to the brink, like the max back in the day. There's just so much stuff in the cart, and everything was so awesome. The music, everything sounded great. And speaking of the music, there was a guy, he was creating sound effects, like doing nothing but sound effects for RPGs. But he always wanted to compose music, like that was where, you know, his passion was. You know, he didn't want to, I don't think there's anyone out there that just wants to make sound effects the rest of their life. Maybe there is, but, you know, this dude wanted to create music. And so his name is Yasunori Mitsuda. And so one day he basically told his boss that, hey, I want to make music or I'm going to quit, because he was getting paid almost nothing, like really like probably minimum wage to work for them. So they gave him, this was like his one shot to make music for a video game. This was his chance to set up his whole career basically. And so he took it really, he put everything he had into it, like all, you know, he worked so many hours and worked so hard on it that he was developing stomach ulcers working on Chrono Trigger. And he would pass out at his desk and wake up, and he said he would have dreams like with the music in his dreams, and he'd wake up and then start composing the music that he heard in his dreams. And he almost died. He was hospitalized because he was working on this fucking game and stressing over it so much. Like, he put everything he had into the fucking music for this game. He made over 40 tracks for the soundtrack. There's another guy that had to, I think he did some work. He made a few of the tracks and kind of, you know, helped out and stuff. And I don't have his name off the top of my head, but he was a talented guy too. But this Yasunori Mitsuda did like at least 90% of the soundtrack. One guy, and the soundtrack is still to this day, like there's symphony orchestras that compose these tracks still to this day, over 25 years later, because the music is so good. You can go on YouTube and everyone's doing like their own versions of it and remixes and, you know, this and that. You know, just because the music was so freaking great. You know, it's video game music, but yeah, it's just so amazing. So I thought that was an interesting story. Basically, just the culmination, getting Chrono Trigger off the ground. It was all kind of a passion project. We all worked really hard, and you could tell playing the game that these people put blood, sweat, and tears into it. If you like RPGs and you haven't played Chrono Trigger, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I think you should try. It involves time travel, which I thought they did pretty well. I mean, as far as what Super Nintendo is capable of, you literally have to jump back in time to solve certain issues. You know, there might be a stone that needs to be charged by the sun. You go back in time, you leave it in this certain cave, you know, in the sun, and then you have to, like 65 million years later, you go get this fully charged stone to use it to do, you know, stuff like that. Or there's one point where one of the characters basically like dies and like phases out of existence. Well, that's because she died in the past, and so you have to go back and like basically save her, keep her from dying. And there's all kind of cool stuff like that. I mean, the story's long and insane, lots of twists and turns, and really great characters. Yeah, I mean, even playing it like beating it a couple of weeks ago, like, you know, it kind of hits you in your in your feels a little bit. And like back in the day, that was unheard of. You know, I played games, you know, they were really fun, you know, to play, but they didn't hit me on that type of level to where they got a little emotional. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get it off my chest and, you know, rant about it because I think it's a really great game. Not to repeat myself, you should fucking go play it. So Evil had to go home. I'm just throwing this in last minute as we go to edit this video. You know, as I mentioned when we were talking about Chrono Trigger, I stated, you know, how the music was great, the graphics were great at the time, the character design was amazing, everything about it, the story, the pacing, the gameplay, everything was just top notch, especially for its time, and it even holds up to today. But all those things aren't really what made Chrono Trigger great for me. There's a lot of games that you could actually say that about. There's a lot of masterpieces out there. When I really sit down and think about it, the reason that Chrono Trigger is so great is that it's something that will touch you, something that will stick with you for the rest of your life. You're going to be referencing, or at least I know I will. I'm going to be this is going to be a game that I reference for the rest of my life. You know, and it's a game that I'm not going to forget. You know, there's a lot of games that are great that I can't say that about. Like if you beat Chrono Trigger, it's something that's special. In way, it's magical even. Like I don't even know how to describe it. But really, those are the main reasons as to why I think this game is so great. It's been something extremely special to a lot of people. Going over these, you know, I was going through reviews and listening to what people have said about it, and it's been such a huge part of almost everyone's lives that in all these reviews that I've gone through, and I can't think of another game that can get such accolades. For me, Chrono Trigger was the game that set the bar and gave me my expectations for RPGs to come for really to this day after playing Chrono Trigger. And really, no other game has quite hit the peak that Chrono Trigger hit when I first played it. Still to this day, not even Final Fantasy VII, nothing. I love Final Fantasy VII, I love a lot of other RPGs, but I really don't think Chrono Trigger will ever be dethroned in my mind. I don't think it can be done. You know, that might be unfair to future RPGs or whatever, but that's how great and special this fucking thing is. Don't just take my word for it. Check out these clips from multiple reviews that I stole from YouTube. But I didn't even have to look at these reviews to see if they were positive reviews or not, because that's just the game that Chrono Trigger is.
I played a timeless classic that constantly rivals Final Fantasy VI for the title of best JRPG ever. Mechanically speaking, Chrono Trigger does everything right. Which game do you prefer, Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger? I take Chrono Trigger any day. I enjoyed the story more, the pacing, exploring. I enjoyed that 10 times more than I did in Final Fantasy VI.
Chrono Trigger has a very, very special place in my heart. Yeah, and the soundtrack is just like unbelievable.
Theme, I get teary-eyed.
Me too.
Every single time. I'm going to do it right now. Like, there was nothing else like it at the time. Like, this thing really pushed that whole 16-bit era, like, right to the brink.
Everything about Chrono Trigger is epic. Chrono Trigger is one of the greatest video games of all time. Once you begin playing Chrono Trigger, you'll wonder how you were ever happy with anything less. As the decades pass, passion for Chrono Trigger only seems to grow. They said they wanted to make something no one had done before. They did. And in the process, they created an epic RPG time travel masterpiece that has fittingly stood the test of time.
Some of the greatest minds of the time, with some of the most amazing intellectual properties, all came together to develop Chrono Trigger.
Just as I began seriously contemplating abandoning my most passionate aspirations, this game inspired me in a way that nothing has before or since. It's because of this game that I moved forward with what I felt inspired to do, rather than what I felt was safe. It's one of the most brilliantly structured, innovative, and passionately crafted video games I've ever played, and I'd like to share with you some of the reasons why it's considered to be one of the greatest games of all time. I was touched in a way that changed the course of my life, and I now live with the dream of inspiring others in the same way with my own work. It's because of this that I can say without hesitation that Chrono Trigger is a masterpiece, and by far my favorite video game of all time.
Is there a more hyped game out there than Chrono Trigger? Since coming out in 1995, this game has now received almost 20 years of rave reviews. So if you've never played Chrono Trigger, I can understand why you'd be skeptical. After 2 decades of hype, can Chrono Trigger live up to the insane expectations? I can answer that. Yes, it can. And that's that Chrono Trigger is the best game the Super Nintendo has ever produced. And yes, it does live up to the hype.
Often cited not only as one of the best RPGs of all time, but as the best game of all time, Chrono Trigger is a name that even casual players might recognize, even if they have absolutely no idea what the hell it is. The memories and feelings of Chrono and his friends, that remains long after you've turned the game off. That alone might just make the whole entire journey more than worth it. Chrono Trigger is an incredible game that I want everyone to experience. Everyone should play this game. It is so perfect.
Let me just put this to rest. Chrono Trigger is amazing. It is undoubtedly one of the finest games ever created. Man, this game is good. Like, really, really good. I first played it near its release 20 years ago, and it still residuates in my mind as a fantastic game. It absolutely still holds up to this day, and likely will continue to do so for years to come. Like a clock without hands, Chrono Trigger is timeless. If there's ever a list made of the essential RPG games you must play to truly appreciate the genre, Chrono Trigger will be at the top of the list.
That's right, the time has finally come for me to review arguably the greatest game ever made by man. This was the RPG that made me go, holy shit, RPGs are awesome. Chrono Trigger wins over Final Fantasy VI by that much. It's that good. I can play it every year. It's like, you know those people that read Lord of the Rings every year? I can play Chrono Trigger every year because Chrono Trigger is awesome-tacular.
Chrono Trigger has been recommended to me ad infinitum. Lauded as the best JRPG to ever exist for nearly 25 years, Chrono Trigger is one of the best games I've played in recent memory. It feels like it could have been created this year, and I wouldn't have even known the difference. I'm not exaggerating when I say it is a perfect mixture of some truly innovative features. But none of them can sully Chrono Trigger's triumphant stature. Not because it was revolutionary, not because it was influential, and not because it deserves special treatment. It's a masterpiece because it's an experience that I flat out can't get anywhere else.
Chrono Trigger, a truly timeless classic that never gets old. We all have those games, the ones where no matter how many times you go back and play it, you always walk away satisfied or even overjoyed. Chrono Trigger is one of those games for me. Overall, with its masterful soundtrack, still enjoyable battle system, deep characters, and perfect use of time travel, Chrono Trigger is truly a masterpiece video game. If there was one game I'd like to see get a remaster or even just a modern port to all systems, it would definitely be Chrono Trigger.
When I stream, I basically have built the entire stream, my whole internet persona, really everything around Chrono Trigger, because it's just such a part of me in my life. And I could sit here gushing about it like crazy and tell you all why it's perfect, story, pacing, gameplay, everything.
This game is either the greatest game of all time or the greatest game of its time. It's a game that's basically lightning in a bottle, or a perfect storm. It managed to connect with me as a child, but it also managed to impress me as an adult. And in truth, it created a standard in RPGs that made it so hard to match that slowly over time I just had to accept that nothing would be quite as good as Chrono Trigger.
she says was right to call Chrono Trigger lightning in a bottle. There really isn't much else out there quite like it. From the prolific dev team to nailing the pacing and providing a treasure trove of secrets to uncover. And I'm so glad I decided to take a leap of faith and give it a go.
And I don't think I have much of anything to say bad about Chrono Trigger. It's aged amazingly well. If you have any interest in modern RPGs, but perhaps haven't paid much mind to the stuff that came before, Chrono Trigger is an absolute must-play.
My favorite game of all time, probably yours too, Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo. If I had to rate this game, I'd give it infinite amount of hot peppers out of 2 hot peppers, because that's how exponentially good this game is.
It's not often that you run into a game that can change your opinion of an entire genre of games. My love for the RPG genre can be all traced back to one game that started it all, Chrono Trigger. Honestly, the only real downside to this game is that it spoils you. After playing Chrono Trigger, you'll never be able to look at any other game the same again. It is the standard on which all other games should be judged.
Though there have been a number of games that have attempted to tackle this topic, at its peak, I don't think any have covered this theme quite as well as Chrono Trigger. Does Chrono Trigger truly deserve the title of one of the best games ever made? I think so. If you have not yet had the pleasure of playing this game, I would highly recommend that you try and find an opportunity to play it.
And to put it simply, it's a masterpiece. It shattered every expectation I had, providing me with a gameplay and storytelling experience like no other. With the new game plus and the alternate endings, it'll keep me going back to it for years to come. If you've never played Chrono Trigger before, then wait no longer, because this is a classic that time cannot touch.
Chrono Trigger is a great game, and it's a fun RPG to play. The graphics look good for a Super Nintendo title. The storyline is interesting, and the battles were quick and never tedious. At 800 Wii points, it's absolutely worth every penny, and you should buy it now.
So in conclusion, just wanted to add, like I have a PS5, I play, all the modern games as well, but I'm 41 years old and I still go back to Chrono Trigger every now and then because it's that good. And I don't really do that to too many games, especially not on the level of Chrono Trigger. The whole reason that I wanted to make this video is, well, for one, I wanted to voice my opinion of how much I liked it. And I still feel like there's a lot of people that hadn't played it yet, especially newer generation or, whatever the reason. And I just think it's such a good game that I really hope that people will find it wherever you want to play it. I've kind of heard some bad things about the Steam version. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. I haven't played the Steam version, but if the Steam version is your only option, then go for it. But if you can find one of the other versions, pretty much any of them should all be good. Please do so. Please find this game and play it. Especially if you like RPGs and you haven't played this game, like, what are you doing with your life, man? No, seriously, if I could recommend one freaking game to my friends and family or viewers, anyone, this is fucking it. Like, this is it. Find this fucking game and play it, please. I fucking beg you, just because I want you to experience it. It's not going to hit you right off the bat. It's kind of it might be a bit of a slow burn at first, but trust me, just if you can beat Chrono Trigger, it'll be something that stays with you for the rest of your life. So we'll see you guys on the next episode, the Rob and Evul Show. Peace out.
Peace and neck grease with you.
Yeah, peace and neck beards.
Peace and neck beards. Rob, you start there.
Okay. I don't know where to look.
It's kind of in general, I guess. Look between them, I guess.
Okay. This one's kind of good. Okay.
Or I'll look at this one, you look at that one.
Because we're...
You crosshair that boy.
I'll probably look at this one. I'll just use that one that's like...
Yeah.
Okay. All right.